Hello, good morning. Watching Breakfast with Louise and Dan this morning.
Now, the number of coronavirus deaths around the world has passed 1 million. This is according to the tally kept by Johns Hopkins University.
America, Brazil and India account for nearly half of that total. The UK has recorded more than 42,000 deaths, making it the fifth worst affected country now in the world.
Let's speak to Gillian, who's Minister for Apprenticeships and Skills, who joins us now from Westminster. Morning to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And let's talk about what is that really grim milestone. But what's really striking, isn't it, is that the UK is the fifth highest rate of coronavirus deaths. Has the government failed to keep this under control?
Well, no. I mean, obviously, we've said often that, they're doing comparisons between countries, doing comparisons between where we all are is not really the point. I think what is worrying right now and what is a serious situation is at the moment in the UK, the number of cases are doubling every 10 days. And that is actually a serious situation that we are worried about, which is why we've introduced new measures, new restrictions, etc., to try and see if we can get that R rate back under 1, which is the most important focus that we have right now.
Well, let's talk exactly about those different restrictions, because there are so many different restrictions in different places. There are rules which are different in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England. Currently, over 16 million people under local lockdown in the UK. That's 65% of Northern England. With all those different rules, is this not a confusing picture for people?
Well, actually, we've tried to simplify the rules as much as possible. But, you're quite right. I mean, if you'd have said to us a year ago that we'd be living under some of the restrictions that we're living under now, nobody would have believed us. Nobody would have believed that we would be living like this. This global pandemic has had a massive impact on every part of our lives. But, whilst we're in this situation where we're learning to live with the virus until we get a vaccine, until we get some different methods to combat it, then at the moment it really is hands, face, space. And right, those areas that have higher case rises, we really do have to reduce the amount of socialising, which seems to be where, and I guess it makes sense, where a lot of the transmission is taking place.
And we've just been speaking on this programme to the leader of Newcastle City Council, who said there are so many messages, it's so confusing, and that detracts from the big picture of social distancing.
Well, we've tried to simplify it. So hands, face, space. I think that is, the only thing that actually kills coronavirus at the moment is soap and hand sanitizer. It's why it's so important that people do use that. And then obviously the face and space for the airborne, coronavirus, to make sure that you wear a face mask, protect yourself and others, and keep far away. And then we've now got the rule of 6. Now, obviously in local areas, there are some curfews that have been brought into place, which has now been extended across the country, and we have some additional restrictions now on households not mixing. There are some different rules for different areas, but by and large the main rules are really simple: hands, face, space, rule of 6. Be finished with your socialising before 10.
OK, 16 million people under local lockdown. Is this a creeping national lockdown?
No, I think it's responding to a very serious situation. As I said, the rate of infection is doubling every 10 days. We have to change that trajectory. That's why we're asking everybody to take this seriously and, protect yourself, but mostly, make sure you're protecting others. Living with the virus, we can only do two things. We can either learn to live with it, use the only weapons we have, hands, face, space, minimising the amount of socialising we do and doing that in a sensible way, or we end up with further restrictions. We are living with the virus. There really isn't, we can't pretend that isn't the case. And we do have, as they have across many parts of Europe and many parts of the world, the infections are rising again. So we do need to take this extremely seriously.
Are you protecting people by closing, we know, pubs and restaurants at 10 p.m? And then we've seen those scenes, haven't we, in cities across the UK of many people out on the streets trying to get on public transport at the same time. We're looking at some of the pictures now just from York. Are you going to look at that 10 p.m, that curfew and the impact it is having?
I think the thing to really remember, okay, you'll see some photographs and you know, there clearly were in some of the city centres, you know, there were people who carried on, you know, having a party, etc. But the vast majority of people in this country did not do that. The vast majority of people will obey the rules, will make sure that they leave before 10 if they want to avoid a crush on public transport. Obviously, we've said we're going to make sure there's a lot more public transport available around that time as well. But I think, you know, people will get used to this, I think, and people will hopefully start to take it seriously, because this is for all of us. This is, you know, this is something that everything we do impacts the health of everybody else. So, you know, we do need to make sure that we take it seriously.
Can I just
I
ask you,
hope that won't be repeated, you know, week after week.
can I just ask you about students, because you're part of the Department of Education, aren't you? And we know that there were, so I think it's 40 universities have cases of coronavirus. Thousands of students are having to self-isolate. Was it right to encourage them to go back?
Well, of course we want, I mean, this group of young people have missed out on quite a lot due to coronavirus. They missed out on their last part of school, they missed out on their exams, their leavers parties, their festivals and things they would have done over the summer, their Freshers' Week. They really have had, you know, been impacted a lot by this coronavirus pandemic. And, you know, obviously the universities are responsible for this decision, but I do think that offering that blend of learning, some of that university experience is important. You know, people don't want to, we have to live with this virus. They don't want to stay and put their life on hold for a long time. But of course, universities have gone to a massive effort to make sure that they are safe, that they're COVID friendly. And, you know, obviously we need to make sure that students learn to live within these rules and, you know, and particularly take the socialising aspects of it, hands, face, space, seriously. And, you know, just make sure that they try to keep the infection down. But just to be, you know, students are treated no differently than anybody else. Any one of us, if you get coronavirus, we have to self-isolate for 14 days. And if we've been in contact with somebody and the app pings or somebody calls you, you have to self-isolate for 14 days. That's what many people across the country will have to do. And if the infection rates continue to rise, more of us will have to do, which is why it's so important to follow the rules to try and get those infection rates down so that we don't have to self-isolate.
Gillian Keegan, Minister for Apprenticeships and Skills, thanks for your time this morning.